Fantastic. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's a privilege and a pleasure to do the lunchtime slot on day one of the Digital CogX conference. A little bit different, so I know how it's been done in previous years, but I appreciate everyone dialing in and looking forward to the conversation. And to expand on that introduction, I lead our Azure business in the UK for Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft about 12 years now. Previously to this, I was our Chief Technology Officer. So think about strategy, operations, and the delivery of technology. But I think the key thing from a Microsoft point of view is that we're only successful if our customers are successful and if they're using our cloud technologies to do innovative things to drive digital transformation and business outcomes. So today I'm going to spend a little bit of time up front just setting the scenes and talking about some of the journey that Microsoft's gone through. But I want to spend the majority of the time and up front say a big thank you to Diana and Chris to hear about their journey. They're coming at it from slightly different areas. Diana, from a BP point of view, has been leading the way from a digital transformation and adopting cloud for a number of years now. And so I think that's their learnings and success, great best practice sharing that many people on the stream could hear about today. Whereas Chris has fought the hard fight over the last couple of months with the challenges we've had with COVID-19 to completely flip the business model and deliver technology in a very more rapid and agile way. So I think between the two of them, first, a big thank you before I get into the Q&A, but between the two of them, hopefully you'll have some fantastic stories about how they've adopted technology and utilized it for the business outcomes they're going to drive. But just to set the scene a little bit, to put into context, and if you can bring the slides up, please. I just want to go back to this quote that came from the Microsoft Chief Executive, Satya Nadella, in our Q3 earning release, which is when I was thinking about the context for this session, just gives you an idea of the narrative that we want to talk about, which is to say that at the moment, it's unprecedented times, that the COVID-19 is impacting everything from a work and life perspective. I've been happily working from home here in my home office since the 23rd of March and being quite productive in that. But we've seen through particularly our customers, this acceleration of digital transformation. Satya talks about 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. And the takeaway that I want many people on this call to go is that it happens across all different elements of organizations, and organizations that you might not typically think are ready to adopt the cloud. And it's happening through all different areas of the technology stack. And it's both an immediate surge for demand, but the last point I think Satya says is key, that it actually represents what I believe is a systemic structural change in the way that we will define our lives and work and the way we drive business outcomes. So I feel really privileged from a Microsoft perspective to represent that business. And then when we talk to Diana and Chris, I think you'll see and hopefully hear from them about what it means for them and how they can drive. I think the thing that I ground myself with from a Microsoft point of view is the Microsoft mission. When I first joined Microsoft 12 years ago, our mission statement was to put a PC on every desk in every home. And we were very successful at that, but it didn't necessarily go to what you did with that PC once you had it there, what the business outcome or the benefit you were trying to derive from it. And this challenging period of time, I think, brings us back to our current mission statement, which is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. In other words, it's about the outcome, the achievement and the empowerment based upon technology that we're trying to drive. And that's been our mission statement the last couple of years, and it doesn't change in these current times. That even though the landscape is changing in the world and the way we need to work and the new processes and increased expectations, that principle is maintained and that principle stays the same. And that even these challenges that we face, in my opinion, again, we're privileged to be able to rely on technology to adopt and adapt to that change in the short term, but then to maintain it longer term, to be able to think about how we utilize some of that technology in the coming months and years as society changes from this challenge. And what from a Microsoft perspective, what we've seen across the market, top to bottom, is a number of different use cases or a number of different scenarios that have peaked. Usually the use of our technology is pretty pervasive and consistent, but there's a number of areas that are listed on this slide that we've seen significant increase in customer adoption and usage based upon the challenges. And we've wrapped them up in this context of supporting resilience operations or resilient operations framework. And there's clearly things at the top around remote working, remote solutions in healthcare and frontline services. Microsoft, we often see ourselves as the frontline provider for frontline services. We're clearly nowhere near as integral or important as those people on the front line, but us providing the technology to help support them in that area, I think, is particularly key. Remote learning, which with Chris we'll talk about a lot more. We've seen a huge increase in requirement, but citizen service, HR, digital supply chain, intelligence security, across all of these, we've seen a big spike in demand and a spike in usage across the customer base. And the main takeaway, and you'll hear this, I think, from the stories and the discussions I have with each of my panelists, is these technologies have been maybe around for a while. It's about utilizing them and applying them in particular cases, and then learning how to continue to do that. So it's not actually, there isn't a technological innovation behind this. The technology is pretty tried and tested. It's about the practice and approach for applying that technology in this space. So as I said, I don't want to spend most time talking. I really want you to hear the perspectives from Diana and Chris, hear their stories and us to have a dialogue. This is much more about talking about the challenges and opportunities they've seen versus me talking on slides. So with that, it's my great pleasure. I'll start with Diana, and we'll just talk about some of the areas in BP that they've worked on together and some of the areas that you've delivered value on the platform. So to start with, Diana, it'd be great just if you could introduce yourself, your role, and just a little bit about what you're doing at BP.
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you, Michael. And it's great to be here today, for sure, in this fantastic event, and amazing that we can hold it virtually in this way. So, so I'm Diana Kennedy. I lead strategy, architecture and planning for BP, part of the IT function. BP is a global energy company operating across 72 countries. We have IT people across 33 of those countries, and I lead the team of strategists, architects and designers who are building the future of our company through technology, and have the privilege to lead that team as part of our overall global IT organization. We've been doing a huge amount in the cloud. Actually, we declared a cloud-first strategy for our core infrastructure services back in 2016 now, and I remember that day really well. We had just launched as a company a new group strategy, which for the first time in the history of this great 100-year-old company had digital at its core. For the first time, you're recognizing the role that digital transformation, the role that digital technologies can make in transforming this industry towards what we now know very familiarly as our low carbon future, and that real challenging energy transition of continuing to meet the energy needs of the world whilst radically and dramatically reducing our carbon emissions. And you can imagine the excitement as an IT leader to see digital as a real fundamental part of that core strategy, but also knowing that we were a very long way away from where we needed to be as an IT function to underpin that strategy. And we knew that one of the foundations that we needed to get after was cloud, and we laid out a strategy, and right at the core of that was cloud first. We were faced with aging infrastructure across 8 mega data centers globally, running 15,000 both physical and virtual servers, of which about 50% was running end of life. We had leases and expiry dates coming up for those mega data centers, and we had an organization that had spent 10 years really driving towards a low-cost commoditized service, as opposed to a highly skilled organization that had the agility and pace to deliver that transformation. So we were in a very, very challenging place. So we absolutely knew that cloud first was the right answer for us, but we also knew that we weren't there. And I remember so distinctly being in a room with our group CIO and writing the press release about our cloud first strategy, and absolutely believing that it was the right thing, but knowing that we just weren't ready. But knowing that setting out that North Star right from the front, right from the get-go from the front was completely the right thing to do. And in doing that, I'm super delighted to be able to tell you now that in June 2020, we closed our America's data centers just 2 weeks ago. Two of our big mega data centers in the US as a result of that cloud-first strategy and the migration of our workloads to a modern application led development and hosting environment that is fit for the modern age and fit for this transformation. So yeah, I mean, it's super exciting actually from those terrifying days 3 or 4 years ago.
I can imagine. I think that, like, first, congratulations, amazing. Like, I see a lot of different organizations at different parts of their journey and have been close to and aware of the close partnership and activity that Microsoft has been doing for BP for a number of years. And internally, we always talk about both the strategy that you've undertaken, but also the fact that you're executing on it and delivering on it. Because I see organizations talk about cloud first approach and estate rationalization and the big undertaking that it is to close down massive mission critical data centers. And if you roll back 3 or 4 years and you'd be thinking, I've got huge mission critical systems that are running here that you can't operate as a business without, setting the drawing the line in the sand, putting the flag down, saying this is the direction we're getting, and then getting there. Just a huge congratulations from my perspective. And I think for the listeners and those on the stream, when you think about the context of this stage and the conference as a whole, part of why I was really keen to have you on and to discuss is because you've done it. You're doing it. So I don't want to set expectations. There isn't always more to do, but you've done it and you've gone on that journey, and it's set you up well for crisis or no crisis to be able to adapt and to pivot based upon these capabilities. So first, congratulations and thank you. And it's amazing to hear that you've gotten to that point after a number of years. I think my couple of questions based upon that, if I may, and a discussion, it'd be great to understand or hear a little bit about maybe some of the projects or the specific areas that most come to mind through that cloud first strategy that you're thinking about, and then some of the business benefits or the outcomes that you saw off the back of that. Because I know it's easy to say this is the view, but when you put into practice, you can actually see the real tangible impact of that.
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I mean, as you know, you set out a strategy, and you can develop the business case for that. That is actually, in our case, was really predicated on mitigating end of serviceable life of our infrastructure, improving our cyber defenses, and giving us that agility and pace. But the specifics were a bit less tangible. So it was very much about engaging the hearts and minds of our businesses and improving the value of cloud through that journey. So we really had this underlying sort of infrastructure transformation program going on, which we had a huge amount of support from Microsoft and our other partners to get there, and we certainly had a number of course corrections on the way. But whilst that is ongoing, it's very much about delivering great value through specific use cases as well. And I have so many of those; it's difficult to choose. But let me pick a couple. I'd say. We have started on a quite advanced machine learning journey for our production operations, and having the benefit of the scaling of the cloud through the billions of data points that we capture every day from the sensors that are part of our industrial infrastructure, and streaming all of that to the cloud, to then be able to run not just predictive analytics, but historical trending and some really quite sophisticated machine learning models to improve the reliability and availability of our facilities. And we've achieved many percentage increases in the availability and also the safety of our facilities through that work. And it's something that I'm certainly super proud of. Almost never imagined we could do so quickly, and you know, almost certainly you know, save people's lives in doing that by just having the models and the predictions there. So that perhaps is a you know, really big example of where not only have we got the agility and the flexibility of cloud infrastructure, but we've also been able to build solutions, you know, super quickly using, you know, orchestrating components and services that are available to us now on the cloud. And I'd say, you know, even in that last 3 or 4 years of journey, you know, maturity on both sides has really grown. New services have evolved in a way that, you know, perhaps we couldn't imagine 3 years ago, and the capability on the BP side too. We've invested very heavily in our people and training and learning, and I think that has really helped.
Yeah, I think, sorry, Diane, if I can come in, I think what I love about that story, and we've talked about that before, is as you've started on a journey that, you know, is predicated on cost and reliability and data center closure, but through that, the technology is innovated to be able to unlock new business benefits, to do things beyond or above what you do from a pure infrastructure perspective, and then have the knock-on effect to drive better safety and ultimately save lives. Like that is why I think the privilege and pleasure I have working with Microsoft, back to that mission statement, is it's not about a bit of tin in a data center or ML models on Azure. It's how you drive that impact. It's a humbling story to hear how quickly you've moved there and that benefit that you've delivered out the back of it.
Yeah, and what's happening now is the demand for those services and demand for new products and initiatives is vast. So be careful what you wish for. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I think I cut you off. You were going to talk about another project, I think, that you're working about. I'd love to hear about the other things. Yes,
that's right. I mean, that there are a huge number. There's a couple that are spring to mind, and actually our Teams migration, I think we'll talk about in a minute. So I won't cover that one, which was, you know, really predominantly accelerated to improve our cyber defences. But in another part of the business, our retail organisation, you know, was really, really struggling with lack of investment in IT and IT infrastructure, but also the application level. And we were able to not just lift and shift their infrastructure to the cloud, but also transform as we go. And we now have a really high performant app dev capability that has built some fantastic products. And some of you who are UK based may be familiar with BP.me, for example, which is our retail solution, which, you know, could only have been possible through not just our cloud infrastructure migration, but the orchestration of cloud services to create those products and to create them at scale. I think that's what we forget with cloud, is it's not just about agility, it's about scale. And you know, your projects that would take 3 to 6 months just to stand up the infrastructure and to configure the software, 3 or 4 years ago, now can be done in a matter of days or weeks, and the benefit of that is just enormous.
I love the the app approach and the DevOps approach to be able to, as you say, it is a model, right? You start with, generally I've seen across organizations, big and small, you start with the infrastructure and make sure you've got resilience and scale and security. You focus on value-added capabilities, ML and innovation, and then use the scale to rapidly deploy applications. And I think when you put it like an app on a phone, that it puts that tangible aspect to the outcome of it. Hearing that end-to-end journey and based upon that platform, I think is super rewarding. It'd be great. You mentioned it briefly in your discussion around it's technology change, but also people change and cultural change. And it might be useful, and maybe we'll link these two questions together. If you could talk a little bit about the cultural people change that you've seen from an IT perspective, but then as you've gone on your journey through teams and had to adapt to these rapid ways of working. I know you are, from the internal perspective, a huge advocate and use of our technology in that respect. To talk a little bit about that collaboration and teamwork as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure you all know that the way to unlock the value from digital transformation isn't the technology. It's the use of that technology, but it's the people and the skills and the culture that enables that adoption and that innovation at scale. Back to the scale point again. And I guess we sort of recognized that pretty quickly, and also realized that digital transformation isn't just for the IT function or for the digital organization, it's for the entire organization. And we did two things. One, we talked about a little bit, we reorganized our whole digital organization into a set of services underpinned by a DevOps model and delivered through Agile. And that in itself was quite a mammoth undertaking. But in parallel to that, we have embarked on a huge global reskilling of our organization, and have also used sort of internal lighthouses, internal experts and initiatives that have really stood out, and use those to really showcase to the organization what can be possible. And we've learned a huge amount on the way and made lots of mistakes. Believe me, I laugh now that when we originally started our cloud journey, we pretty much tried to reinvent a on-prem data center environment in the cloud, and realized that frankly, one, you lose all the benefit of the cloud, but two, that really is not the point. And so we started with reskilling our technical folks with modern tools and technologies, but very, very quickly realized that actually it's our businesses that will be consuming these technologies that really needed to be part of this journey. And if we were really trying to transform this industry on a scale that's never been seen before, then we could only achieve that together. And through the combination of the technology and the innovative mindset and the sort of product-centric culture, where we're going to be able to do that. And it's still a journey, but we've done lots of things, and perhaps that's back to the team's point. And took a number of learnings from partners, including Microsoft too. And the one that I love and use a lot with my team, and we now roll out across parts of our organization, is how we measured. We're not measured on how good we are at our jobs, or what we've done, or how many workloads we've migrated to the cloud, or how many products we've delivered. Although of course we are measured on that. But in addition, we're measured on what have we done to help others be successful in our organization, and really take our own knowledge and learning and share that with us for them to be able to do that too. Yeah. And then thirdly, what have we done to leverage the work of others? So in an organization that's been very siloed, and has a sort of not invented here culture, to really incentivize people to leverage other people's work to make it better and continually improve it, has been a really important part of that culture change, actually, which is still ongoing, of course, but is a big part. And that point about collaboration and sharing knowledge and learning and capability with others across the organization can only be achieved with the kind of tools and capabilities that we have with our Microsoft Teams environment now. And it won't surprise you that of course that's been a journey too, but the ramp up of that has been huge over the last 3 to 4 months with COVID. For example, we've gone up, our Teams calls have gone up from 600,000, gone up by 600,000,
wow.
300,000 in February to 900,000 calls in April, and Teams chat messages up 15 million from up to 24 million chat messages in April. So
phenomenal change.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It takes time, of course, but really embedding that mindset of collaboration, of multifunctional team working with a combination of physical and digital innovation and innovative environments and tools that make that stuff easy is really at the core of this, over the native technology itself, for sure.
Yeah, and that resonates so well, like hearing the cultural change in people. And I know you've talked to other Microsoft people about, we've got a very similar approach on individual impact, building on success of others and helping others succeed, and that Venn diagram, a combination between them, and using technology to enable that and to support that into collaboration working and breaking down the silos to actually drive the business benefit. I've got one final question, maybe. So again, big thank you so far, this story and the journey and understanding. For many of the people on the call and listening in on the stream, they will not be as far along on their journey, and probably sitting here thinking, wow, I wish I had my cultural areas lined up. It'd be great if you just maybe touch on one or two of the biggest challenges you may have faced, or what are the biggest bits of advice you might be giving for others who are on this journey and are trying to get to a similar place to innovate like you have.
Yeah, and I'd say a couple of things. I think the first would be having that North Star at the beginning, to be a cloud-first company, and our now Chief Executive Bernard Looney declaring his intent to be the digital leader in the energy industry really helps. Of course it does. But I think as technology leaders, we can help bring to life what the art of the possible is. And I think that would be something that I would urge all of you to do, for hearing our story, hearing other stories. Actually, you're declaring that flag on the hill and not only believing it, but having the confidence to deliver it is super important. And then, I think one of the characteristics of my organization, which actually I personally have learned, perhaps don't naturally have this muscle, is just tenacity, is the meticulous precision and execution, and not to give up. I think some of us have quite short memories and quite impatient with delivery, but I often describe it, and forgive me, Michael, hope you don't mind this analogy, is sort of cheese on the broccoli. I think executives, you'd like to have cool stuff on the way, and I think about it as you're trying to get your kids to eat broccoli. If you want them to eat broccoli, then stick a bit of cheese on the top. It'll taste much better.
Yeah.
But
I
actually,
love the analogy.
what you really want them to do is eat the broccoli, right? And it's the same. You have to put in those core foundations that give you the scale and security and agility. But executives, you get very impatient, so they want some cool stuff on the way. So get your doses of cool along your journey, and I think you'll be good. I like my ML story, like my retail story, and those things now for us are coming thick and fast. They really are. But I think thinking about how you can, what is the cheese that you're going to put on your pocket, it's important.
I love that analogy, and I take away the tenacity, the North Star, the leadership, and then cheese on broccoli. Get the bit is fantastic. I know we could be talking for another hour on this call.
Sure.
Big thank you again for telling some of the story. I know it'll be useful for those on the call, and I think I'm looking forward to the continued partnership and the work that we're doing together to see what's next down
and so much more to come, for sure. It's a fantastic partnership, and we're now doing a huge amount in the sustainability space and other areas, so it's really blossoming.
Exactly, and I think that's a good example of where we have that kind of mission of the organization and similar desires from a societal impact perspective that Microsoft has, that you guys have, that links then to it, the underlying technology support that means that we're pushing in the same direction, and hopefully we'll achieve great things together. So
absolutely. Good. So thanks for inviting me. Thanks for listening, and I'll stay on the line, of course. But if anyone wants to reach out to me, via LinkedIn or whatever, feel free. I'll always be around.
Terrific. Thank you, Diana. Very much appreciated. Thank you. With that, I'll do the segue across to introduce Chris Parry from the University of Nottingham. And this will be a slightly different story. Diana and BP have you've heard her talk about the journey they've gone through over a number of years. Chris and the team and the conversation I've had have always been advanced from a technological innovation perspective, but this crisis has, in particular, maybe impacted them and the education sector as a whole in a significant way. So Chris, maybe I'll just start, and I've got the slides up, and if you just say put the slides up, we can present them. Just maybe to introduce yourself and your role at the University of Nottingham and a little bit about the journey you've gone on.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank you for inviting me to present at this event. It's a great pleasure. So I'm Chris Parry. I'm the Associate Director of Partnering and Innovation. I work in the Information Services Department, and it's really my and my team's role to be the radar for the Information Services Department. So what's happening in the university, what strategy, what's its priorities, where is it trying to make the biggest difference? And then really bring that work back into IS to understand what value we can bring to any initiatives that the university is trying to move forward, and really starting to balance the innovation versus the modernization of our infrastructure and some of the same challenges that Diana talked around. So that's really what the team does. And recently we've added in an uptake and adoption capability. That means we're just making the most of the technologies that we've invested in, the services we've invested in, and making sure that best practice is really shared across the organization, which often people don't have time or really focus in on. The best thing to hear from a change and adoption person is, for our perspective, an academic talking to an academic about the difference that our technology services have made, not having the IT person turn up and talk about how great this new technology is. Yeah. So that's really what my role and my team is there to do. So happy to introduce the university and
I was
who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, I should have said at the start a little bit selfishly. I'm a University of Nottingham alumni, though. Don't let the accent fool you. I'm not from the Midlands originally. But even talking to Chris, and maybe we put the slides up and you can talk through it, Chris. I learned more talking to you about what Nottingham is doing and the kind of scale and scope of it. And just let me know, and I can flip through these as we go through.
Absolutely. So I think something that's really important to us as an organisation is that we're a campus-based university. We've got amazing campuses in China, Malaysia, and the UK, and we're encouraged to be really globally engaged and making a real difference in everything that we do in our cities, in our regions, in the countries that we're involved in, and really making sure that our staff and students are improving lives through problem solving, through knowledge exchange, and making sure that we're learning constantly and discovering the latest and greatest research or innovations. And really, we've all embedded into us is this entrepreneurial kind of a tradition of creativity and innovation. And it's really driven from the heart of the organization out into every department. And it's a really passionate and creative organization to work for. So it doesn't lead much to think that from an IT perspective, that gives us a great stage to build on, really. So if we quickly move on to the next slide, just for context, really, for people, we have around 47,000 students globally across 3 campus locations and much wider as well, who are supported by around 9,000 members of staff. And really everything is based around our campuses, and the innovations that come from those spaces. We really need to create a digital world that's as inspiring, that's as innovative, that creates that community that we love and thrive on each day. So if we move on to the next slide. And also as an organization, we're not just about teaching and learning. I think this is some of the diversification that often we don't see. It's not only is it about teaching, but it's about our employability of our students when leaving university, making sure that the skills gaps that we see are filled. We're making sure we're driving the leaders of the future and making sure they get that right experience of the organization. With hundreds of thousands of alumni from across 190 plus countries, that the global aspect to us is really, really important and drives us forward. Our research is a core aspect of what we do, and making sure that we're constantly moving forward in our research areas and focusing in particular areas is absolutely important and drives a lot of our teaching and ways of thinking. Plus our kind of Nobel Peace Prize winners, our world records, plus our kind of our China and Malaysia campuses that have really been exceptionally innovative as some of the first in those countries, providing UK degrees in particular locations. And that global reach with our partners is absolutely vital. And as I say, gives us a real set of foundations that we as an IT department and we as an organization need to build upon.
So, I mean, that's fantastic context. Thank you, Chris, and I appreciate it. And I think it hopefully alights a lot of people with some of the things you say about campus focus and troping of that must have been challenging, given the current state of what's going on. So, I mean, if you could just give us a sense, give the audience a sense a little bit of that journey that you've gone over leading up to the crisis, but particularly over the last couple of months.
Absolutely. So we've been building our digital transformation program over a couple of years now. And really as part of that, yes, there's been the infrastructure modernization side and making sure that we've got the foundations correct. And that is still ongoing. But it's really been making sure that our digital tools and our digital services have purpose, really, and making sure that we really understand why digital services, digital tools are being used by our range of colleagues across the organization. So really what we started with was firstly making sure that we understand the purpose of teaching and learning. We don't want to get in the way of our teaching and learning. We want to enable it. We want to make a difference in that area. So making sure that people have the right tools, the right services, the right skills, not only to do our teaching and learning, but then to provide the skills going forward to our students to make sure that they're employable and making sure that they've got the right skills to move them forward. And that's gone through a range of projects and a range of initiatives, really, through uptake and adoption programs, through providing the right devices and the right environment for people to thrive upon, building of new buildings, but also making sure that we've got access to things like Office 365, to Teams, to our Azure program, and making sure that we're training that out in the correct way, and really making sure that as we're starting to train out the use of those technologies, that those are being done in a sensitive and purposeful way, and it's not IT saying this is a great set of technologies, why don't you use it? Starting from there's a purpose here, we want to collaborate more. Okay, so if we want to collaborate more, what's the best services in which to do that?
And so, I mean, we've talked about all the different projects that you've worked on and the different ones. Maybe if you could bring to light, one or two of the biggest opportunities but challenges I think that you've faced in the recent months and how you've kind of adapted to them.
Absolutely. So really the move of teaching away from campus. So it's been exceptional to be part of that. We've not stopped teaching. We've continued to teach, and that's all been moved online. So we are using things like Microsoft Teams and Office 365 and other tools and technologies to really to deliver synchronous and asynchronous teaching, and to see the move from on-campus based to online has seen things like our Teams usage grow from 9,000 to 33,000 people using Teams over a 2 to 3 week period.
Sorry,
and that
can I ask you to say that again? 9,000 to 33,000 over 2 weeks?
Over a 2-week period as the university moved from campus to online based.
And that is phenomenal. You should feel proud and your whole team for making that such a huge journey in such a short amount of time.
And I think the students and the staff members that have really grabbed this opportunity and said, "This is the right tool. It's going to enhance the experience to our students and our members of staff." And all of the previous work that the team's done over the kind of previous year has meant all of the training, all of the uptake and adoption, all of the gentle messaging that's happened over those number of months has enabled that fast move. And in that same scaling of needing to move from physical to virtual has also been our adoption of the Windows Virtual Desktop in Azure, where we have computer rooms, thousands of computers in computer rooms but on campus, that provide specialist access to particular pieces of software. And through agile delivery, through our working really closely with our digital learning directors, our engineering department and our science departments and others, we've been able to go from having virtually zero online virtual desktop capability to now having the ability where up to 7,000 students or members of staff can access that from offsite from any of the devices that are supported. And it's been amazing to see the responsiveness and the work that happened. And when we think about agility and the innovations that happen, from having nothing to having a live service that was available to our staff and students, that was between 5 and 10 days worth of effort.
5 or 10 days worth of effort. Wow. And
absolutely.
And remotely enabled those specialist apps from your local on-campus PCs in a matter of weeks to digitally enable your learners.
Absolutely. And all of that was enabled off campus. So all of the Teams calls, all of the agile working, all of that happened whilst we were off campus as well. Now, there's lots of activity still happening on campus, and many people haven't left campus. We still have buildings open and students on site that couldn't get home. We have research happening. So these services and these innovations have been benefit not only to our staff and students that are working remotely, but also those that are on site, continuing to make sure the campus stay ready and are ready for our return and our constant return over the next number of months.
Chris, could you talk a little bit briefly? There's so much we could talk about. I know we're already pressed on time in this session, but about you're talking about research and keeping research enabled as well, because I think the speed of enabling learners has been amazing, and some of the stories about digital uptake and recording of sessions and WVD, those are terrific. But how has it helped your research organization?
So from the research side, the scalability has been huge for us, and the uptake and adoption of particular cognitive services has been fantastic. So a couple of examples that come to mind is the transcription service that we've created that uses Azure Cognitive Services, where in a particular professor's office, there was a range of hard disks that just had MP3s on them. And the conversation was, I'm never going to be able to get through all of these recordings. How can I transcript them and turn them into something that is data that's useful, that can drive my research forward? And all of a sudden, we then enabled the professor's research overnight with suddenly they could upload all of their MP3s into a transcription service that could then get put into a document file and could then actually be searched, and we have the metadata that then allows the researcher to drive it forward. Mm-hmm. Plus, on the other side, where we're using more of the AI side to enable computer visions and better use of imagery as well to spot differences between different kinds of photographs over the decades. So it's been a significant difference, not only from our teaching and learning perspective, our research perspective, but also then moving into our professional services, and just enabling that view of flexible working, agile working, remote working is likely to change what we do moving forward for a number of years.
I really love that story, Chris. We talked about it before, the balance you've had both of enabling flexible working to continue business as usual, but then unlocking new innovation and addressing things through machine learning and cognitive services that you just weren't able to do before. And I just, from a Microsoft perspective, we see organizations big or small, the pace of your change and the ability for you to deliver it at the scale and the speed has been amazing. And I'm just so thankful for you to come onto this session and share those stories and talk about that. And I know you and I could probably talk about another dozen different stories as we did in the calls leading up to this, but I'm getting the cue from the director to wrap the session now. And so I just want to say a big thank you from my perspective. Thank you to you and you sharing your story and the journey you've gone on. And I look forward to continued partnership and the additional capability that we'll do together. And thanks to Diana earlier, again, on our existing partnership and the journey that we've gone on. I really hope for everyone listening into this broadcast and thinking about what they're doing, you've got an example of a huge multinational like BP going through that journey and closing down massive data centers and then taking advantage of the cloud. And then a global but very campus-based organization like Nottingham rapidly flipping tens of thousands of people to remote working or enabling hundreds of thousands of hours of recording to be processed. They're just stories that if it's possible for these organizations and the amazing stories that Chris and Diana have shared to do in theirs, that I think you'll be able to take away and do in your own organization. So a big thank you again from Microsoft perspective for us participating in CogX, but a thank you to my guests, Diana and Chris, for talking their stories. And I wish we had more time to talk about the other amazing things you're doing in more depth. But that's it from a Microsoft session perspective for this this slot, and enjoy the rest of the conference. A big thank you from me and the team.
Want access to more CogX videos? Subscribe now for free at cogx.co.